You're very welcome to BBC Newsline. I'm Declan Harvey. We begin with the government's controversial law offering immunity from prosecution for Troubles-related crimes. Today, a judge ruled that the central part of that law should be struck out because it breaches the human rights of victims and relatives. As a result, there are significant questions tonight about the future of the government's plans. Our Justice correspondent Julian O'Neill was at the High Court.
Opponents of the Legacy Act, including those who brought this action, filed into court to hear a judge land a major blow on the government and its controversial approach to dealing with the Troubles. Under the Act, suspects in hundreds of bombings and shootings can apply for immunity from prosecution by providing information to the ICRIR, the new legacy body. But a judge has now ruled this part of the Act should be disapplied as it breaches the European Convention of Human Rights.
The Secretary of State's proposals was built on a foundation of immunity. The court has struck those proposals out. Those foundations are gone. It is time to go back to the drawing board.
It's time the British government woke up and seen the damage that they've caused. Because we're from Northern Ireland, because it's the Troubles, what's the difference in us and any other part of the world? We're entitled to what everybody else is entitled to. It's time. They're not living through it. We are.
This was a highly anticipated judgment, and it took Mr. Justice Adrian Colton more than 2 hours to read what was just a summary of a ruling which ran to more than 200 pages. But this perhaps is the key line in all of it. The judge said there is no evidence the immunity provision would in any way contribute to reconciliation. Indeed, the evidence is to the contrary. It was not all bad news for the government, in that the ICRIR was found capable of being able to do satisfactory investigations. However, the ruling on conditional immunity overshadows all.
The immunity from prosecution, which was the incentive for people to take part in the ICRIR, is no longer there. So that raises critical questions about how both the ICRIR proceeds, but particularly for the Secretary of State. There is a big political question here that now has to be answered.
The judgment runs to over 200 pages and I am yet to see it. It will take some time to consider, but we will consider Mr. Justice Colton's findings very, very carefully. But we do remain committed to implementing the Legacy Act.
Critics of the Legacy Act once spelt out their objections on the side of Parliament, but today it was a judge who delivered the headlines, and for the government they make uncomfortable reading.
And Julian is here. It appears this evening, as the implications of this ruling become clear, that it runs a coach and horses through what was the central argument for introducing this set of rules in the first place.
And make no mistake, today's ruling, creates deep trouble for the government and the ICRIR. Look, the government is expected to appeal this to a higher court. There was no hint of a climb down in Parliament today. But for now, this key element of the Act is out until another court puts it back in. The ICRIR was trying to put a brave face on things today, noting that the court said it is independent and capable of carrying out investigations. But look, this immunity ruling is a further dark cloud on its horizon as it prepares to open for business in the summer.
We talk about horizons. There are other potential problems coming down the line. I mean,
general election this year, if Labour wins, they say they will repeal this Act. So it could be that the ICRIR is on borrowed time already. Paramilitaries have already said they won't participate in it, not even before the immunity clause was called into question today. Victims groups are against it, political parties are against it. Irish state agencies won't cooperate with it. Ireland is taking a European case against it. And now we have this. What was a difficult task in gaining acceptance for the ICR has just got much, much tougher tonight.
Julian, thank you very much. There's a lot more analysis of today's events on our website this evening. But we move on because a covert surveillance operation was carried out by police against a person they suspected of leaking documents to 2 local journalists, namely Trevor Burney and Barry McCaffrey. The revelation was made during a hearing in London, which is looking at claims the 2 men were subjected to repeated attempts by officers to identify their sources. Our reporter Julian Fowler is outside the Royal Court Courts of Justice in London for us this evening. Julian, it might just be worth bringing us up to speed on the background of all this.
Well, the Investigatory Powers Tribunal met here today. It's an independent court which considers allegations of unlawful intrusion by public bodies, including the police and intelligence services. It carries out much of its work behind closed doors, but today Trevor Burney and Barry McCaffrey were here in court for a public hearing to examine their claims that they were targeted by the police using covert surveillance to identify their sources. The two journalists were arrested in 2018 over the suspected theft of documents from the police ombudsman's office in relation to their documentary about the Locken Island killings in 1994. The PSNI later apologised and paid substantial damages.
So tell us what we heard in that building behind you then today.
Well, we were told about a 2-week covert surveillance operation of the person the PSNI believed was the source of the material from the police ombudsman's office. It was also revealed that the journalists have been targeted numerous times by different police forces for more than 10 years to identify their sources in separate investigations. This was their reaction afterwards.
Our arrest, our case against us, everything was about finding a source. That's all the PSNI were determined to do. They involved 2 other police forces, but all they were attempting to do was find a source. And that is shocking.
3 different police forces in the UK have been trawling journalists. Every journalist in the UK should tonight be asking themselves, was I one as well? Was it me?
And Julian, just finally, it's important to say this is seen as a landmark case for journalism.
Indeed, this is all about journalistic freedom and the protection of sources. And there has been an admission by the PSNI that accessing Barry McCaffrey's phone data on one occasion was unlawful. John Finucane is his solicitor.
There are a number of allegations that remain to be decided by the court, and we will obviously prepare and engage with the court in that respect. But there is now an acceptance that they acted unlawfully. And what strikes all of us who are involved in this case is that the amount of resources that were put into identifying journalistic sources stands in stark contrast to any efforts made to find and convict the perpetrators of the Locken Island massacre and other acts of illegality that was uncovered through the tireless work of Barry McCaffrey and Trevor Burney.
Well, a lot of the material in this long-running case has only just been disclosed, prompting one of the journalist's lawyers to describe today's hearing as a shambles. It was adjourned, and we'll learn tomorrow what will happen next.
For now, Julian, thank you very much, Julian Fowler. Now, the family of missing Bangor woman Lisa Dorrian say they've taken the difficult decision of adding her name to the family headstone. It's 19 years since the 25-year-old vanished. Police believe she was murdered. Her family have again pleaded for information about where her body might be. Ita Duncan has this.
19 years ago, Lisa Dorrian's broken family sat on a couch and begged those who knew where Lisa was to tell them.
Try and imagine what we're going through. And then we just want to be able to lay Lisa to rest. And we just need to have a funeral now to be able to grieve properly. We can't grieve until we've had a funeral.
19 years later, Lisa's sister Joanne still has not had the funeral for her big sister. The family, now without their mother Pat, have made the tough decision to add Lisa's name to the family headstone.
We added her date of birth and missing since the 28th of February 2005, and we left it at that because we want to be able to add to it when Lisa is found, and we live in hope that she will be.
There are new generations in the Dorrian household, but Auntie Lisa remains very much part of it.
We do talk about her. We talk about her as if she's here, but we explain to the children that she's gone to heaven, and they do sort of understand that, in a way. But I wish she had met them, and I wish, she was very maternal, and she would have loved to be part of their lives.
Lisa was last seen at a party at a caravan park in Ballyhalbert. The police believe she was murdered by someone she knew. Despite searches, appeals and family pleading, no body has ever been recovered. But Joanne says they will not give up hope.
Just help us. I'm appealing to a murderer. to help us. And I do that with every bit of compassion in my body, because he's the only person who knows where she is. And I would just ask him to please stop this for us and just let us lay her to rest.